Good morning. My name is Richard Aldrich. I serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce, having previously served as president for 3 years.
Oh, good morning, everyone. I would like to congratulate the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce and the International Brazilian Opera Company, IBOC, for organizing this panel discussion on opera as a driver of economic growth. This is a subject of great importance, as I have no doubt of the economic impact and job creation opportunities in cities and communities brought about by this unique art form.
Thank you everyone for being here. Obrigada. Thanks for waking up early in the morning to be present for this very special panel and for joining us. Thank you to both the consulate, Brazilian consulate, and the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce for being so supportive of this event and panel. And thank you for Paris Baguette for sponsoring. And Fernanda, Tatiana, Laura, Vitor, thank you so much. Obrigada para seu apoio. And Marcia Sells, I want to just give a special thanks for her for helping to coordinate as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Metropolitan Opera. I think she's done an extraordinary job opening up the community so this could happen and be facilitated. So thank you to her too. Artistic side, what is it like seeing Florencia here in New York and also when you saw it in Colombia? You know, when you've seen it in different countries, how do you feel when you experience it?
Well, yesterday when I was in the dress rehearsal, I was like, is this true? Is this really happening? Because, you know, Daniel really promoted his works and worked really hard to instill, to do a foundation for opera en español. And not only using the language, but also representing the culture. So in his body of works, he has his first opera is Rappaccini's Daughter, based in Nathaniel Hawthorne novel, but also in the play of Octavio Paz, Nobel Prize of Poetry, Mexican poet. Then has Florencia en el Amazonas, inspired by Garcia Marquez. Then we have Sal Si Puedes, which he collaborated with a Cuban writer, Eliseo Alberto. And then he has, in his works, Il Postino, very inspired by El Cartero de Neruda and Neruda poetry. So here you have a composer that is really taking you on a journey not only of music, but of literature, and also in different sceneries. So Rappaccini happens in a garden, Florencia happens in the Amazon, Sal Si Puedes happens in the Caribbean, Il Postino happens in Italy, but always dreaming about the Americas. So how do I feel? It's a little bit unbelievable. So very mixed feelings.
What I'm hearing is that you've done a lot of advocacy for Spanish language opera, and you've spearheaded it in a major way. So it's relatively continues to be a narrow genre, a subgenre in the United States, as it were, even though there's a huge body within Latin America itself. What's your experience in advocating for commissions in the Latin American community?
So, Well, I also have to say that I also support other composers. There's a Brazilian composer that especially is in my heart. His name is João Ripper. I know that we have João Doll here. So it's not only about opera en español, I just want to say that. So what's the question again?
Oh, how's your experience been advocating for?
So I think it comes naturally because I'm Mexican. I was married to Daniel. We had this mission of opera en español, and but I would say that it's been a fight. It's been a battle. I had to be very insistent, and the way I did it was with the musicians, talking to a lot of people, but it's narrow. It's like you say, it's not that easy. It's not until now, after the pandemic and all these events with George Floyd and etc., that there's been like an eye-opening thing. But also we have to take into account the economic force of Latin Americans, and also the amount of people that are Latin Americans in this country. I mean, we have 49 million people here speaking Spanish. So I think McDonald's and Target and Heineken and Budweiser and all of these corporations, they get it. We've been very slow. I got it, of course, living with Daniel and being a musician and trying to do binational concerts and establishing a binational cultural bridge for San Diego Opera and so on. But I think I was also inspired by the Oscar winners in film, these three Mexicans, Del Toro, Iñárritu, and Cuarón. That also was a moment that I thought, oh, so now we're really going into this phase. And of course, these things doesn't happen in one day, it takes years. But here we are, and we should be very happy and honored and proud of being at the Met.
There's so much of a difference in power in terms of wealth from the different countries. The dollar is so strong, even though the Latin American countries are very strong and wealthy in and of their own. But how does a balance be maintained when collaborating?
Yeah, before I answer that question, we also have to take into account that the financial models of art, of making art in Latin America, are changing. We used to be very supported by the government, like I would say 97%, but now it's not the case. So that was another factor of thinking, okay, how are we gonna make art in Mexico, particularly, without that support? So we need money from foundations, we need money from businesses. Huh?
Yeah, and especially in the United States, because it's a very different model here too. So there's a shift in consciousness that's required amongst the business community as well.
Yeah, and because we're so global and we have so many exchanges, I thought, okay, is it now or never? I would like at the end to ask Pedro Salazar. He's a stage director in Colombia. He produced Florencia in Bogota and in Manaus. And also for you to talk about all these economic hurdles and opportunities. Because, North Americans see hurdles as opportunities, which is kind of blows my mind. I had this interview at Ballet Hispanico, and they said, Rosa, so what? They were just asking things, and I just said, well, first I will start with the holes. Like, I was just translating from Spanish, los hoyos. And then kindly, the director said, oh, you mean the windows of opportunity? And I was like, yeah. Anyway.
We love rephasing things positively. I think it's an American specialty. You spend all day advocating about the power of arts, the national, local, economic performance and impact for the performing arts sector, and the ancillary impacts of the arts as well. What is some of the most effective, impactful data that you'd like to share with our policymakers and Congress people?
To answer your question, Athena, the first thing that I do at this point is thank Congress and thank the White House. Since March of 2020, Congress passed legislation totaling close to $5 trillion, $5 trillion to support the United States during the pandemic. And this money's directly and indirectly supported the performing arts sector. So monies went to schools, directly to communities, to various states, directly to families, to artists in the form of unemployment assistance. If they needed assistance with their rent, they were getting that assistance through their state and local governments. There were federal tax incentives for residents to be able to donate to opera companies and other performing arts organizations. There was the employee retention tax credit program that provided monies to various companies and organizations so that they were able to retain their staff, be able to retain their performers during this pandemic. And so what I do first and foremost when I walk into a representative or senator's office is to thank them for that support. In turn, the members that I represent, who are opera companies and organizations and individual artists all across the country, I let them know that they need to develop relationships with their elected officials so that they can thank them as well and also tell them what they did with the money, so that these elected officials know that they provided money and there was a return on investment. I found in my years of experience, nothing resonates more to elected officials than the economic message. They are supporting and passing legislation that provides trillions of dollars any given year. They need to know what that return of investment is. And so I highlight that with my members, and they do a great job in developing those relationships and highlighting the return on investment. But to lastly, Athena, to your question, I will say that there is an economic impact, close to $1 trillion in total arts, goods, and services, and with how that equates to the GDP. That's 4.4% of GDP, and so there is an economic impact, not only at the national level, but also at the state and local level in terms of production of arts, goods, and services, production, and the number of employed. And we're talking right now, based on the latest economic data, it's about 4.9 million workers employed by the arts and cultural sector that is getting compensated well over $500 billion. There cannot be any economic recovery in this country, in the United States, without supporting the overall arts and cultural sector. In this country, the arts and cultural sector has a direct impact on the success of other industries. So think construction, think retail, think transportation, think restaurants, think hotels. And so there was a recent study that was, or a recent survey that was released by the American Federation of the Arts. They surveyed about close to 225,000 people across this country. They concluded that each attendee, when they attend an event, they spend $38.46 in addition to what they pay for their actual ticket. And so that $38.46 goes to, again, their transportation or parking. It goes to them going to a restaurant to have a meal, a nice meal either before or after their event. They are staying at a hotel or some sort of other lodging because depending on the time of the event, they may be buying a new outfit at the clothing store so they can look nice for the event. And so there are other industries that are directly impacted by the success of any event in any given day or any given year. So
primeiro Festival Amazonas de Ópera em 1997. Tudo veio de fora, né? Todos os cantores, todos os cenários, todos os figurinos, a orquestra. Nasceu como um evento, né? Se fazer ópera no Teatro Amazonas. Passou a ser conhecido nacional e internacionalmente. O Amazonas é o único estado brasileiro que conseguiu manter um projeto como esse do festival por tanto tempo. Hoje em dia temos orquestras, corais, companhias de dança, profissionais e jovens, todos formados, em sua grande maioria, por amazonenses.
Isso aqui é uma escola. Eu comecei na faxina. Hoje em dia, graças a Deus, eu estou tomando conta agora desses galpões, desse tudo de cenário, que agora é minha responsabilidade.
Eu não conheço no Brasil atualmente algum teatro que possa fazer 5 produções de ópera em um mês, com uma competência no nível internacional.
Se investe em cultura, se investe em educação, se investe em mudança de vida. É sempre emocionante ver como é produzido esse festival, todo vapor, em tão pouco tempo. É frenético, é eletrizante. Festival Amazonas de Ópera, minha arte, minha terra, meu trabalho.
First of all, I will introduce very quickly the story of how the festival was born. The theater was closed, and it was, in Brazil we say, as a monument theater. There was no artistic groups inside, so it was a building, a very historical old building, was open for a visit as a museum, and once a month or once every 2 months there came opera theater, theater, not how do you say, spoken theater, and so there was nothing in the city, and the surrounding of the theater was a degraded zone with very much violence. And in 1997, it was 1996 was 100 years anniversary of the theater, and the commemoration was very simple, let's say it. So no one in the city was happy with that. And then came along a violinist, a German guy, who was a founder of the Fitzcarraldo movie from Herzog. Maybe you all know, because it's a very famous movie. And he had this dream to do an opera in that theater because of the movie. And he said, I have everything. I have the money and I can bring everything to here. So the Secretary of Culture at that time said, oh, okay. The governor was not happy with the commemoration of the anniversary of the theater. He said, okay. So he brings everything from Minsk, Russia, or Belarus. Everything came from Minsk. The orchestra, sets, costumes, everything. And that's how it started, the opera festival. Once they staged all that in the theater, the governor went there and said, oh, okay, that's what we have to do here. And so that's how it started. So in 1997, we had the first opera festival, and two years later, we already had the orchestra and then the choir, and we started to build our own sets and costumes in Brazil. So the project, it's three things. The Amazonas Opera Festival with the artistic, I'm sorry about my English.
Artistic director?
No, with the artistic excellence. Then we have an education program where all the groups of the theater give free lessons. Only in the capital of Manaus, it's 6,000 children who have free lessons of theater, music, all the instruments, singer, and theater, and dance also. And then we have the central technical, the warehouse, where we give also lessons and capacitate people in costume designs or handcraft work and sculptures and construction things. So these three parts of the project are all inside the Amazonas Opera Theater and the Festival of Amazonas of Opera. So we have impact not only the community, the children, there is now 25 years later, there is a generation of children who were grown up, and now we have 25 people from Manaus in the orchestra, musicians who were grown up and already went abroad to study, went back. And so now we have the choirs, almost everyone from Manaus. And we have dance company, a contemporary and a folklore. We have a guitar orchestra, full orchestra, chamber orchestra, a big band, and the choir. Yes.
What I'm hearing is to invest in the Manaus Opera is also to assist in preserving the Amazon region. And we know this is a part of the world that really needs a lot of love, right? I don't know, it hasn't hit the press for everyone, but there has been extreme dry climate and serious forest fires in the Amazon region, which has been very dramatic and sad. There's been a lot of loss of life of animals, and it's affecting the community in a very serious way. May you talk more concretely about the statement that to invest in the Manaus Opera is to assist in preserving the Amazon region?
I think now in Brazil, it started with the black movements in Brazil, a concept that's a place of talk. So that's exactly what we are doing here, by the way. So we are with Mr. Gelb, who is staging the Florencia, which is a huge, very nice thing. And I heard so many nice things from Andrea, from Tony also, who corroborate everything that I think of, and also from Mr. Peter Gelb, because we need to open our opera houses to be representative of the society that we have around us. So there is a lot of Latin American people here. There is Latin America itself. It's raising the industry of opera each year more. We can feel it. So we all have a responsibility with new works, with new artists, and it brings us all up. But so this place of talk, it's if you want to talk about something. It's not that you are forbidden to talk, but please invite someone who has that experience to have a real sharing conversation. So there is a shift that we have to do when we think about the environmental and the issues that we all have to do about that. It's very complex, the problem of maintaining the forest up. Because it's not only planting trees, it's not only preserving our indigenous people and their territory. This is a fact, it's necessary. But you have to look at the cities that are inside the forest. Because I'm going to ask you something. It's different when you go to the owners of illegal mines or those companies who are extracting illegal wood in the forest. Sometimes they are not even Brazilian, sometimes they are. They need to be arrested, and there is a law for that. But I ask myself, who are the people who have a motor in their hands, or who are poisoning themselves with mercury and poisoning everything around, accepting works like slavery paid? Why they are doing that? Because they are not our indigenous people. They are people very desperate from the cities who are very desperately to put food in their mouth and in their families. And we have to look at those people. We have to undermine this vicious cycle. And that's where opera is important and culture is important. Because first, with the educational programs, those kids are less likely to go into drugs, to go into illegal things. Second, because culture doesn't need proper education, formal education, which is still a very big problem in many cities of Brazil. We have people who are already grown up, who are adults, who already didn't have the education. And Manaus is a free tax zone. There is an industry free tax zone in Manaus. So, but they have a very difficult time in achieving these people, because to work in the industry, you must have at least a little bit of education. So what do you do with this population, who is always a margin of society? We can do something using culture, using the opera. Because I know, because I'm there, and I have examples of people who work in the warehouse, who are now sewing people who works in the crafts of building the theater, the sets and costumes, makeup artists and everything, wig. So we have also a course to do wig, and it's a change for the whole families. And they are not. There are people who are working in illegal mines, and they are not doing that anymore. So you have to address the issue like an ecosystem.